Good morning and greetings, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for April 19th, 2022. It's Tuesday here on planet Earth in this version of reality, and I'm so pleased to be able to be here with you all today. So welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for stopping by and checking out Catalyst Energies and what this is all about. Hello to the Starseed Fellowship. We are meeting, it looks like, tomorrow for our Zoom chat on Wednesday afternoon. I'll be firming up the details with everybody by the end of today. But if that's something that interests you, or you're like, what is that all about? There's actually a link in the description box below called Intro to Starseed Ministry that is just a short 7 or 8 minute video explaining how this idea came to be and what it entails. So 7 to 8 minutes is pretty short considering what I usually produce in terms of content. So I tried to keep it as cliff notes as possible to, give you some insight in what to this space is very expansive, and it continues to be so. So we'll be meeting tomorrow on Zoom. Just in case you're not on the Telegram chat feed, but you are watching this content, you may want to check Subscribe Star so that you can get the link to the Zoom chat. So the moon has moved into Sagittarius. We have these sunspots, as we can see in this image in front of us. Another beautiful photograph taken from Poland. Same photographers yesterday, so this is also linked in the description box if you're interested in this person's artwork and photography in particular, and how to get access to that. It's in the description box. But you can see the little dots here, the sunspots right here, and this group of very active sunspots has been on the other side of the sun, and now it's coming to face us. And there's a very high probability of more intense M to X class solar flares coming off of these sunspots today, especially today, but probably into tomorrow as well. We are in a coronal hole stream. The geomagnetic stability is just that. It's stable right at this moment, even though we have this coronal hole stream that we're in. It's impacted, and you can see that the Schumann is very consistently amplifying at least once a day up to 25, and right now it's going up to even 35 and 40. I do suspect, my own personal feeling is that this is also in anticipation of solar flares, right? The louder that the Schumann gets, the more we hear it, the more we align with it, the more we can harmonize with that particular pitch and resonance. Well, the pitch always seems to drop whenever the Schumann amplifies. I am still I understand what this means in terms of how acoustics and vibration works, and I've explained this before, but I want to understand what this is about the Schumann and the sun and this relationship with the pitch versus the amplitude. So that's going to take more research when I have a little bit more time to do so. But if anybody has any insight, my gosh, I would love that. In terms of why this, but I don't think there is an actual reason. I think that that's just something we're learning about now in terms of the processes of our physical universe. So, and our relationship to it as energetic beings as well. So 75% chance of solar flares. We know that that's going to impact us physiologically, psychologically, just like it impacts the Earth. So we'll look at the space and solar weather forecast a little bit before we launch into today's astrology. But the moon moving into Sag, I think, has really lifted a lot of spirits. There was a very significant, although still questionable in my mind, change in terms of the masking, right, that a federal judge had ruled the mandates in terms of public transportation, like, nope, that's not going to happen. That's not okay. And so TSA has said they're not going to enforce it. There are a number of airlines that are not going to enforce it. They're dropping the mandates. People celebrating, right? There's some satire. There's all kinds of things going on around that. So I feel like that is such a moon in Sag type of like, yes, and that Sun square Pluto yesterday. I mean, I think it was a very challenging moment, I think, for people individually, right? In terms of, being in alignment with the cosmos and natural law. And we started this new moon with that intention in mind, right? Some sort of ideal image of this. And now it's about actually living it, actually being in alignment with it energetically, rather than just relying on the image of it. What does it feel like? How is the experience of it? And when we talk about the sun, we're talking about the combustion and release of who we are, right? Of the energy within us coming to the surface and being released, which is essentially what all stars are doing. So they're going through their own process of transmutation, right? In this case, nuclear fusion. So I do get the sense that the sun continuing through cycle 25 is going to really be supporting the process of activating us, right? We talk about these DNA activations, but I feel like this is the true catalyst of it is the cycle of the sun and the cycle of our solar system through the galaxy as well, being in the galactic plane itself and being exposed to just higher energy plasma, and most likely some sort of cosmic rays increase as well. So there's a lot that seems to be having to purge away, which is Neptune and Jupiter, very specifically. The moon going through Scorpio yesterday, as expected, was a marker within us of how we have in the past, at a soul level, how we have transubstantiated this very deep, dark, and very intense energy that we may feel. And we can take that basic philosophy and the practice itself that is being used against us essentially in every manner of relationship, whether it's the economy, whether it's culture or social, whether it is spiritual or energetic, right? Power dynamics are power dynamics. It doesn't matter what the intention behind it is. It's still as a technique. It's still the nature of the reality here of creation. And I think that we got a sense of the depth of the feeling around these things and how we can actually take that energy in and of itself and use that to transubstantiate our very own reality rather than in getting caught in the victim mode. So we're going to talk about the astrology with now the moon in Sag versus Scorpio and how we can really draw on some inner strength that I think that we were, many may have been struggling to find, at least since the full moon, right? The full moon was such an opportunity to really rise above emotionally, above all of it, and to feel within ourselves what that actually feels like, so that we don't get pulled back into the same cycle again and just continue to reinforce our own perpetual slavery as beings, right? So there's a lot of feels that go along with that. So be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, draw strength from the places that you can, right? And know that even these really uncomfortable feelings, you have rage, you have sadness, you have hopelessness, whatever it is, can be offered and utilized as a power source for real transubstantiation. And where are we going in terms of the natural emergence of the next phase, right? So Mercury met with Uranus yesterday too, and again, I think that the wake up call, right? The mask mandate going down on transportation, right? That's like a very mercurial thing, like the agent of transportation, how you get to and fro, is a very mercurial thing, and we're soon gonna have Mercury. Well, we got some time. We got some times before Mercury stations retrograde, but it will station retrograde in its home sign of Gemini this season. So know that we're coming up on a Mercury retro. So take advantage of it now while you can. And something like that is definitely an awakening moment. So you may have, again, found this awakening moment in various areas of your life or your awareness. But I feel like that, again, that mask mandate aspect was very visual and continues to be for a number of people, and is going to find its way all through the various streams of information. So right now, the moon in Sag, like I said, it's there seems to be a lift and at least a little bit more optimism, or a sense of where we can actually use this energy rather than just be taken over by a sense of victimhood and powerlessness. Right? Betrayal is a very powerful experience, kind of like envy too. It is a very, very deeply ingrained, experience that keeps us safe, right? And when we experience these things and the deep emotional wounding, whatever that is, that most certainly is created in the Scorpio realm, having to do with what type of energy you bring or the others bring into the situation. Betrayal is a very powerful emotion, and if we're not conscious of it, if we have a sense of this feeling but don't have intention behind it, that is for actual spiritual upliftment, boy, it is a powerful resource. Or you can find yourself acting out in ways that are very more just as detrimental as the betrayal itself, right? And that's, crimes of passion really come out in this way. So not to get super into the depth, because we already did that. So now it's like, okay, what do I do with this energy, right? I felt it. I interfaced with it. It was deeply part of my experience, right? You may have found it's very easy to get kind of caught in depression with the moon in Scorpio, because of just this rage that's turned inward in a lot of ways, right? So the sun, right? And we did talk about how Archangel Raphael in the ministry, Starseed ministry yesterday, in the transmission, represents the Regulus, right? The last degrees of Leo. Leo is the home sign of the sun. So again, there's leaving space for blessings, leaving space and room for a miracle and a healing of a split, right? And I think we're still really feeling that in deep ways. And some people are much more aware of it than others. So not to suggest that these movements forward and and a recognition that there are things that shouldn't be, that are now going to be they'll be put a stop to them. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be other moments. So in this moment, I think it's important to recognize what is being purged in some ways, and how narrow the pathway truly is. Mars in Pisces now is definitely impacted by the feels of being surrounded by the collective unconscious in unity consciousness. It's not just an idea anymore, it's an experience for Mars. And this is where those crimes of passion, that's very extreme, okay? The idea here is that we can definitely get pulled into the feels and identify with them and really act in a very self-destructive way as a result. And, it's up to each person to take responsibility for how that happens. But be easy on yourself. I've had to be easy on myself. There's just been a lot of feels, right? And I got a lot of Scorpio in my chart. So it really just... all it really does is influence my capacity to feel that deeply even more. And it's not always a picnic. So I got this itch on my nose. I'm sorry, guys. It's distracting. So let's just get into the solar weather here and just kind of look at where things are right now. So beautiful photography from Poland. Same as yesterday, same photographer. And you can see the sunspots here. So let's take a look here. So this is our chart for today, and we'll get into that. So I want to first of all let's just show the Schumann resonance. You can see that even as of 5 a.m. Universal Time, so that's about 1 a.m. Eastern. So late last night, early this morning, it starts to amplify again, and it's been consistently amplifying up to now 34, and that was at about 7 a.m. Eastern. So again, like I said, the sunspot group is now coming into alignment with the planet, and I get the sense here that the planet herself is really kind of prepping in terms of this. Not to mention, there is a fast solar wind, right? We are in a coronal hole stream, as you can see here, 514 kilometers per second. So it's nothing to take lightly, I suppose. But the field itself is stable, and that's partly because of not the pitch of the frequency, it's the amplitude of it, it's the strength of it that's actually having an impact on the solar wind and what it's doing, right? So there have been flares, like I said, and yesterday there was the M-class solar flares. There are C-class solar flares. Again, this is about 10 a.m. Universal Time. We just saw that was right around the time of the bigger Schumann jump. Let's see here. Yeah, right here. If we scroll down just a little bit, you can see, yep, right here about 10 to 11 a.m. Universal Time. So you can feel that there is another building up and a need in some ways to reinforce. And the moon in Sag is not necessarily a reinforcement so much as you recognize that the friction is creating the fire that is the catalyzing element to create the reaction, the transmutation. So the sun is going to be a big part of this process. So still give yourself the time to process your feels, whatever they are, and be easy on yourself and gentle with yourself, but also be open and to take responsibility for yourself and how you're feeling and what that all means. Oh my gosh, so many ads everywhere. everything that you can look at. So space weather news, just to show you again that the geomagnetic impact is very calm, the magnetosphere is calm, and even the solar wind speed and density is dropping off right now. So the field is definitely buffering herself very, very well, or her field, right? The planet's field is buffering very well right now. So we'll see what happens, right? We don't want to totally keep out all of this solar weather, but we also have to maintain a sense of boundaries. This is just kind of what my thing has been lately. How do you not take on the experiences of the people around you that you love and you want to be open and vulnerable to without, how do you hold space for them? How are you empathic with all of this Pisces energy, especially Venus? How do you stay open? How do you allow the boundaries and the borders to be more fluid and permeable so that you can maintain your connection, maintain a sense of harmony and balance with people in your life and the things that matter to you when part of that experience is being impacted by their feels as well. It's not an easy time. And again, Mars can be an agent for our own, like I said, our own, I don't want to say self-interest, but it's more about acting in our own higher self's best interest and the ego structure that is meant to protect us. But in Pisces, it can very easily, it's very easy to how do I say this? It's very easy to act on other people's experiences and not having the boundary necessarily to identify if they are your feels, if they are feels from a past life, or they feels from a dimensional aspect of yourself, or another experience karmically. Just the people around you, just the collectives, feels at this point. It's Mars is not sitting down and considering necessarily. Mars is the agent of action. So it's also important to realize that that's very much part of the equation here with all of this energy and all this Pisces energy. So the moon in Sagittarius, it actually has a square to Mars in Pisces. It was very early this morning, right? This is as the Schumann was starting to amplify. And there's a sense within us, if we can find it, of real support, right? This is... this is that we're not really alone, and there is natural assistance during a crisis of growth. And talk about a crisis of growth, I mean, we really are coming into territory that we have never been in. So to find anything to model or mirror ourselves with is very difficult right now, especially if you know that what is happening is the complete dismantling and destruction of everything that we've relied upon as reality, hence Pluto and Capricorn. So it's not exactly easy to, identify that assistance when every corner that you have normally found that assistance is not available to you anymore. So we're even evolving at that level of where does that natural assistance, where do those so-called superior powers come from? And, Mars is acting on our own self-interest. And in Pisces, it's kind of like, you're on the isthmus and you're surrounded by the ocean, and Mars is just like, I don't have time for this traffic jam bullshit. Like, I need to get through here. And so you may find, that can express itself in many different ways. And that may be a useful thing for you. It may not be a useful thing for you. The square to the moon this morning definitely was putting the brakes on, or at least a sense of, I don't have to do this alone necessarily. Perhaps I should take just a moment, just a moment and stop for a minute and tap into myself and be like, is there actually some assistance here within that I can tap into that will inform this decision, right? And with the Schumann really starting to amplify at that time, I think that's a great way to think about it. The planet herself, the interaction with the sun, the friction that we've been feeling, and using it as a catalyzing element rather than being burned and feeling like a victim as a result of it, whatever those feels are. So right away, the moon square Mars like that in this mutable square was a big part of this. There is a trine to Chiron today as well. And that's going to be many hours later. Like, we could go 12 hours later from this into the afternoon, and then we find that we're still not really at the point where the moon will be. There we are. The moon is in a trine to Chiron, 14 degrees. So again, it's about tapping into where, like, some sort of spiritual ancestry, where we've been, right? And this is the same basic ideas where that first square with Mars in Pisces, this is a trine now. Again, this is, if we can tap into, in ourselves, right, into these, wisdom keepers that have left some measure of spiritual ancestry behind. So the Sabian symbol here for 14 degrees Sag is may or may not know, which, by the way, is pretty much the degree of the total solar eclipse that we had in December, and we're coming to the end of that cycle in these next 10 days, basically up to the 30th. So also keep in mind that this is very much wrapped up in that process, where we've come from, the history that's been hidden from us or has just been out of our own conscious awareness, tapping into it within ourselves, within our fields. I mean, this is much later today. This is tonight, 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 21:20. So we're looking at much later today, where this moment here of creative stabilization with Chiron in Aries, and it is stabilized in a way where tapping into the seed points left behind, or some relic left behind, the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, right? And it's the idea that whoever is responsible for those structures also is responsible for leaving behind other things for us to know where we've come from. And so we know that the path of totality of the eclipse was over Antarctica. There's been lots of chatter around this, and the seismic activity, there's been focus there as well. So, but what is this esoterically, or in terms of a soul journey with this moon in a trine to Chiron? Well, there's a lot, let's just be real here. There is a lot of trauma and trigger and past shame and guilt around our capacity to utilize what I consider the serpent wisdom, right? Within our DNA, within who we actually are, right? Until we actually settle this for ourselves and realize there's no going back, that we have to learn to integrate this part of ourselves down to our very genetic memory, we will continue to be manipulated. We'll continue to be stifled, and we won't grow. And if we're not going to grow evolutionarily and into fifth density here as a result of this, as a result of being able to get past these old wounds, then people are going to continue their third density journey in a different place in the galaxy or in the universe. And that's something that Alex Collier just talked about too. which I totally agree with. I've been feeling that too, that it's just a matter of the soul going through its own journey, and there's no end to the game really in that way, and it's all perfect because it all comes from God or source. But there is some deep pain here, and a lot of shame and guilt, and a lot of ways that has been absolutely targeted and targeting people so that they don't realize their own ability to release and utilize this energy that, at this point, there's no going back. We can't undo this genetic implementation. And so whatever the serpent medicine means to you, if it means you have Draco reptilian DNA, if it means it is related to, in like a biblical sense, to Lucifer and Satan and evil, right, in the Garden of Eden, whatever it is, whatever it makes sense to your process, just know that it's in this moment that we're going to be able to either heal some of this, right? To really see the potential of what has been left behind by, I would say, definitely the Atlantean priesthood that was like never again, right? But also too, to see how we can constructively use this coiled serpent energy rather than continuing to demonize it or continuing to pull people into that fear resonance. I mean, if you can't see the difference by now, I mean, and that's, again, these are things that are I'm echoing from other people that I've listened to recently, so it's coming to the same conclusion. But this is how I feel as well until we get past this. And this trine is certainly an opportunity to do this, right? And the other opportunity is that it's just, you double down on it, right? You double down on what this is, and you keep feeding the old story. And that's a choice we all are going to have to make. And we all are going to have to live with what kind of voice that collectively makes when we cross the Rubicon into the Aquarian age, which, Pluto coming into Aquarius is a big marker for that, obviously, not to mention some other things, but Saturn being there is definitely part of it as well. So that's by the end of today. It's not a heavy transit day in terms of what's going on astrologically, but then the sun enters Taurus by the end of today. You can see that the sun is at the very last degrees of Aries. So I want to share that degree because it's a duck pond and all the little ducks, right? The brood in the duck pond. And it's the idea that there is, in fact, like natural boundaries that we eventually come to realize when we are acting in our own desire and potency to establish ourselves creatively and as a life form, right? So there's peace when we can find peace and inner contentment with our dharma. Then we're doing good, right? It's required to meet our role in this physical world. We came into form. The realization of natural boundaries, and the fact that potency has become substantiated is where we're all going to start identifying with as the sun comes into Taurus. So this is actually I feel like that this is going to be really very stabilizing in terms of where our voice is and our own sense of expression and identity, and who we are individually, right? This is, now Taurus, the standard Taurus thing is, certainly being patient and a sense of fertility, a sense of solidity, right? This is fixed earth. But just keep in mind, North Node, Uranus, Mercury in Taurus, and May 5th, 5 by 5, May 5th. This is when the sun meets Uranus, okay? This is also Beltane, by the way, in terms of the actual astrological transits, right? This is when the sun will be at 15 degrees of Taurus. And Beltane is, we'll talk more about it when we get closer. But one of the things that happens at this time, if you want to visualize something, is this is the moment where the seed cracks open and the germ starts to make its way up through the dark soil, still searching for the light. This is Beltane. So when the sun meets Uranus, you can bet that that's going to be a cracking open and a freedom in some ways for many of us. It's just the Mercury meeting Uranus at this point was a conscious mental awareness, that harmonic that we talked about, where we're still down on earth right here, even living very closely to that which we've come from. Our own unconscious, a sense of almost innocence and spontaneity and something very simple. And then Uranus is the harmonic, right? The octave playing at the same time. That was yesterday. And so again, there's the polarization is so obvious, and we have to be able to find that place where it is we are existing in the same place at the same time, because how else are we going to transmute that for ourselves? Well, Mercury and Uranus, I think, was that moment here. And then the sun meeting Uranus on the 5th of May at Beltane is going to be a real freeing type of experience. So we'll talk more about that when we get to that point. So I'm just going to leave it there for today. Not so much to necessarily catch up on, but just to check in, let give a sense of what's going on and the astrological support that we can utilize, and to just be, ready and prepared the vessel for further growth and activation, because it seems like it's coming. And yesterday was just kind of this like, oh, okay, we're here now. It's happened. So Starseed Fellowship, we'll be talking soon. We'll get set up for our Zoom chat sometime tomorrow. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Daily Medicine transmission. Take care of yourselves. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. So not only should you be taking care of yourselves, but definitely take care of each other as best as you can. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the daily. Love you. Bye.